traditionally begin with the meeting, we'll have the invocation and the pledge of allegiance, and I'll let the city clerk announce those individuals.
Tonight's invocation will be led by Pastor Josh Matlock, and the pledge will be led by Councilmember Lopez.
Great. Can I ask everybody please stand? And Pastor, are you there?
Yes.
Anytime you wish to proceed.
All right. Well, I look forward to the time when we can be in person and praying together. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for this evening and another evening that we have to breathe in the air that you've given us and to live the life that you have placed before us. Father, I pray for all of those who are here in attendance at this council meeting, that you would bless them with wisdom and grace as they serve you by serving the city of Montclair. And we pray that you would be honored in this meeting, that your will would be done. Father, we do pray for an end to this virus and a return to some normalcy. We pray for your protection over our city, and we pray that great things would be done here. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. And Council Lopez, you can start anytime. You may be on, we can't hear you.
There you go. I think,
Okay,
am I on?
you're on.
All right, please join me in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much to you both. And I'm going to ask the city clerk, please take roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez. Councilmember Lopez. Oh, he went dark.
He's there. Council Lopez, can you hear us? So you may want to unmute yourself.
My screen froze. Sorry about that. I'm here.
Okay, Councilmember Martinez.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rube.
Present at City Hall.
And Mayor Dutre.
Present as well.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comments. This is the opportunity for members of the public to speak on any item that's not on the agenda. You will be offered 5 minutes. The city council cannot discuss any items that's not on agenda per the Brown Act. So at this time, I'm going to ask the city clerk if she's received any written comments.
I did not receive any written comments, but I did receive 3 requests to speak. And the first one is Felicia Alcaraz.
Okay. Hello, Felicia. Are you there?
I'm here.
You can begin. Do you have 5 minutes?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Felicia Alcaraz, and I've been a resident of Montclair for 3 years. On the night of February 8th, 2020, a fatal 3-person car accident occurred at the intersection of Ramona and Howard that took the life of 2 grandparents along with their 5-year-old grandson, just trying to get home from a family party. Prior to this collision, this 4-way intersection at Ramona and Howard was equipped with stop signs that aren't easily visible, faded lettering on the pavement, and oftentimes damaged or down signs due to collisions. In mid to late 2020, solar powered lights were added to the stop signs in an attempt to increase visibility. However, residents continue to notice drivers running the stop signs. On a personal level, on January 25th, 2021, I was involved in a car accident on Howard and Ramona. What started as a quick trip to the store for 3 ingredients for dinner ended up with my car being totaled, severe neck pain, bruises, post-concussive symptoms, and worst of all, the trauma from that accident. The days after my accident, I couldn't stop thinking of how close I was to not seeing my girls grow up and leaving my fiance to raise 2 girls on his own. I wouldn't want anyone else to go through this traumatic experience of a traffic collision due to a poorly designed intersection. Now, more than ever, I'm urging you, the City of Montclair, to address this matter as urgent. Based on the SSAR report, which stands for Systemic Safety Analysis Report, published in March of 2020, the intersection of Ramona and Howard is currently number 11 on the hotspot analysis found from info collected from 2013 to 2017. Furthermore, based on this same report, Ramona and Howard was listed number 4 on the list of top 10 priority recommendation projects in the city of Montclair given by Fair and Peers, who created the report. The recommendations included a road diet that would reduce space dedicated to vehicles and create more room for bicycles, wider sidewalks or center turn lanes, a roundabout, and also bike lanes. My question to the City Council is, what's preventing you from taking action on proposed projects in the SSAR? I understand the pandemic has slowed small businesses, but construction is deemed essential, especially if it's to keep Montclair residents safe. What actions, if any, do Montclair residents need to take to get action taken on this intersection? Do we need to petition? Do we need more residents to voice their opinion? Or do we have to wait for more tragic accidents? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll have the city manager address, make some responses after we're done with public comments. City clerk, you have the next person, please.
Yes, the next speaker is Alma Trejo.
Hi, I'm here once again because Councilmember Lopez answers to my concerns during last city council meeting was unsatisfactory. I wholeheartedly believe in learning from one's mistakes and growing as we are exposed to more information, experience, whatever it may be. I think that I have tried to engage you in many ways to hear about whether you have changed your stance, whether you have done any kind of work to undo the damage your lobbying has done, and or tell me, your constituent, how do you plan to ensure that your work as city council member is devoid of any homophobia or any other kind of ism? I am still waiting to get to know you. You refuse to engage with me and address our concerns. Now, you reference not believing what somebody else has written about you to fulfill their agenda. Rest assured, Mr. Lopez, there is no agenda other than ensuring that our city council does not engage in any kind of discriminatory policy implementation. The only agenda is to ensure that everybody in our city feels safe, welcome, and represented regardless of sexual orientation and or gender expression. The fact that you refer to our concerns as an agenda is troubling. None of us are here to try to victimize you or make you a whipping boy, which I may add, please take into consideration the racist and the classist connotation of that expression. We're simply asking you to be transparent, to engage with your constituents, and for city council to work on being an inclusive governing body. Until then, I will only have your quotes, the quotes you provided for publication, as reference when trying to understand how you will serve our city. Remember, accountability feels like an attack when you're not ready to acknowledge how your behavior has harmed others. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have the next speaker, please?
The next speaker is Tuan Nguyen. Sorry, I didn't unmute him yet. I need to find him again.
Okay.
Keeps disappearing.
He keeps disappearing.
Oh, there, he went to the top. Okay, there he is.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, thank you. Greetings, Mayor, council members, staff, and residents. And also Felicia, I'm sorry to hear about your story. So I do hope the city address Felicia's concern tonight regarding Ramona and Howard. And also Happy New Year to everyone. As you may know, I've been vocal regarding my concerns about Mr. Ben Lopez as well, and his past anti-LGBTQ remarks and advocacy. I made my statements regarding the matter last year and had decided to temporarily put the matter to bed. But after having listened to Mr. Lopez's comments from the previous city council meeting, I also wanted to respond to him this evening. Mr. Lopez, during the previous meeting, you stated the following to the public. Don't buy hook, line, and sinker what others said about me or what you may have read from what people think they know about me. I'm not the rebel or bad guy that people want to perceive me or make me out to believe and be their scapegoat or their whipping boy for their own agenda. Your remark is ironic and disingenuous. You worked for the Anaheim chapter of Traditional Values Coalition from as early as 2004 to as recently as 2015, as indicated in a 2004 article by the Los Angeles Times and a 2015 article by the OC Register. While working for Traditional Values Coalition as their spokesperson, lobbyist, and director, you spent over a decade campaigning against and attacking LGBTQ people like me. This is not a perception that I conjured in my mind. This is what you, in fact, did. There are testimonial videos of you sitting in front of the California legislature advocating against same-sex marriage and LGBTQ history curriculums. You did that. For example, in 2011, you traveled to the California State Capitol and testified against Senate Bill 48 that added LGBTQ history curriculums to public school. In referencing the LGBTQ community, you stated that, and these are your words, there's only one way you can present these lifestyles, and that is desirable. This bill is blatant promotion at its best. With that, we are against the bill. Again, this is not a perception that I conjured in my mind. Those were your words spilling from your mouth, not mine. In a 2010 news article from the San Bernardino Sun, you were quoted describing longtime Montclair LGBTQ residents, such as myself, as making inroads and saying how we would be rejected by our community. Your words were, gay wants to boast and brag that they are making inroads. No, they are not. Go to my community. They will be rejected here soundly. Again, we're not making these things up. You said that on record. Those were your words, not mine. It's ironic that you would accuse people such as Alma and me as having some sort of an agenda while you had a decade-long agenda to ban same-sex marriage, ban LGBTQ history curriculum, and ban transgender protection laws. You literally spoke to policymakers in California to do exactly that. So before you criticize other people such as me for having an agenda, make sure that you haven't had an agenda of your own before acting like a pot calling the kettle black. As an openly gay person who came out at the age of 15, let me tell you what my agenda actually is. My agenda is to live in a city, in a state, and in a country where my government seeks to protect and support me as an LGBTQ person. My only agenda is to live in a community where people like you do not describe people like me as, quote, making inroads and where my community would reject me. You accuse us of treating you like a whipping boy, your words, and acting like a victim while you have attacked people like me for over a decade. What did you think was going to happen when you decided to run for public office? Did you think we would be silent about the harm that you have done? You don't get to spend over a decade of a career attacking LGBTQ folks and now sit there playing the victim. You do not get to play the victim, not today, not tomorrow, not ever. You also stated during the previous city council meeting that you are here to be of service to all residents and listen to all residents and ask us to get to know you. So being that I am a longtime resident of Montclair, I hope you are listening to me today. I want to get to know you. So tonight, please help the community get to know you and clarify the following. Do you still stand by your anti-LGBTQ stance that you publicly displayed from 2004 to 2015? Will you tonight apologize for the anti-LGBTQ things that you publicly said and the anti-LGBTQ policies that you publicly advocated for? And lastly, we want to know how you, as a council person, will serve and protect Montclair LGBTQ residents. Please clearly and concisely answer those questions without engaging in political deflection. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, do we have any other speakers that wish to speak? If you're on a laptop or an iPhone or desktop, you can hit the flag to speak. And if you're calling on a telephone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute. So do we have any other speakers, City Clerk? I don't see any other speakers in the public comment.
No more.
Can I have staff, Ed, are you prepared to respond to the first speaker? City Manager
Yes,
Stark?
I can respond, but in the interest of the Brown Act, would you prefer that I wait until City Manager communications?
Okay, we'll do on our City Manager's communication later in the agenda. Not a problem there. Okay, So we will now move on to public hearing, and we have one item for public hearing, and this is regarding the CDBG funds. May I have staff presentation, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, this is your annual approval of Community Development Block Grant funding for fiscal year 2021-22. We anticipate receiving approximately $228,859. However, keep in mind that number can be adjusted upward or downward. We're still waiting to hear what the final tabulation is, but as you can see in your agenda report, staff is making a recommendation for the following programs. For code enforcement, a recommendation for $63,797. Historic preservation of the Reader Ranch, and this is keeping in line with what we've recently been doing in relation to restoring the Reader Ranch property to museum quality so that we can allow school-age visitors as well as other tourists to come to the site and visit it. You also know that earlier or late last year, we received authorization from the state of California to spend up to $5.2 million on developing the adjacent property as parkland that would provide a link between that property and the Reader Ranch. It's also contingent upon us to continue development of the Reader Ranch so that the funds utilized from the state of California are benefiting both purposes, the development of the park and the Reader Ranch. So this year we are again recommending an authorization to expend money, CDBG money, for preservation of the Reader Ranch. For this year, we are proposing exterior preservation of the house property. Construction costs are estimated to be about $120,000. For graffiti abatement, this is an annual continuation of that program as well. Staff is recommending $30,062. And for the senior transportation services operation of the Golden Express transportation bus, again, this is an annual continuation of that particular program. Recommendation is to authorize $15,000. for a total of $228,859. Obviously, there would be no fiscal impact on the city's general fund budget, as all funds would come through the Community Development Block Grant Fund as administered by the County of San Bernardino on behalf of the federal government. Staff's recommendation is for City Council to approve the projects as listed and their prioritization for fiscal year 21-22. With that, that concludes my staff recommendation or staff comments.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Do we have anybody raise their hands if they wish to speak on this item here? I don't see any members of the public that raise their hands to speak on this item, so I will close the public hearing and bring this matter back to the City Council. Are there any comments or questions for staff from the council?
Mr.
May
Mayor,
raise their hands?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Lopez.
question perhaps to the city manager. The $63,000 earmark for code enforcement and then $30,000 for graffiti abatement. I understand that the two go hand in hand. And so I look at it as a $93,000 allotment for the two programs. I'm curious though, as to, for me, the 30,000 seems to be rather sparse, given the fact that what I kind of see around town is a proliferation of graffiti and there being a urgent need for that to be addressed. Is there any opportunity for that amount to be increased over time should the amount of funds given to us increases?
No, not from Community Development Block Grant funding. We are limited by federal law to a maximum expenditure of $45,062 for public service activities. That number is incorporated into those two programs, the $63,797 for code enforcement and the $30,062 for graffiti abatement. So the components of those two programs that are committed specifically to public service related activities, that would be outside of labor costs, for example. Again, we're limited to $45,062. So we're at the top of our ability to add funding in those two areas from Community Development Block Grant funding.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. I have a question for staff. I know that we've expended the last 3 or 4 fiscal years on improvements to the Reader property. That includes the foundation, the electrical, the roof, This one is for the exterior of the house. Am I correct, City Manager?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And then we also have to have improvements to the barn. Is that a future allocation for the barn?
Yes, that would be coming in a future authorization from the CDBG account.
And then after all that, I mean, are there other costs that we can?
Mr. Mayor, if I may correct myself, this allocation is actually for the barn.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so the exterior improvements, there's already a funding for that then.
Yes, that is correct.
And then after the barn project, what other funding allocations are, what other improvements does the site need? Is there other improvements anticipated?
Well, there are probably very few additional expenditures. The reason for that is we cannot spend the money on regular maintenance and upgrades on the interior of the units. It can only be spent on improvements to exterior, and therefore we're getting at the end of the line as to what we can use CDBG money on for the Reader Ranch property.
Okay. So there's a possibility that maybe next year might be the last year or the year after that usage of CDBG fund Reader Ranch, and this money could be freed up for other capital projects.
Yes, that would be correct. We are getting to the end of the line.
Okay. All right then. Okay. Any other Councilmember Rue, did you have your hand up? I'm sorry.
Yes, I did, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I did, Mr. Mayor. I had my hand up so I would make a motion for the item as presented this evening.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Second by Lopez. Can the city clerk please take roll call?
Councilmember Lopez,
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Rue,
Aye.
Mayor Dutray.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, that's adopted 5-0. So the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. I know that city clerk can correct me, item A2, the minutes of the last meeting, there was an addition made regarding the council committee appointments. Any
Yes.
other items to be pulled off the consent calendar?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion for the consent calendar as amended this evening. The amended item is, of course, number A as an apple 2.
I'll second that.
Is there a second to the motion? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I don't see any more comments, so I will ask for a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez,
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Rue,
Aye.
Mayor Dutray.
Aye. And one caveat for staff, the last item, which is D1, is the resolution firmly support of the Democrat process. Can we have that resolution mailed once it's signed to both our U.S. senators and also to our Congresswoman, please?
Yes, we can certainly do that.
Then after that, we will now move down to communication, and the first communication will be the city attorney.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 items. The first one is listed in the agenda. I'd like to ask the council members to meet in closed session regarding a conference with our designated labor negotiator, Mr. Starr, concerning the employee associations listed. The second item is in regard to a response to the first speaker at public comment. I just wanted to remind the council members and staff that in my Brown Act presentation 2 weeks ago, I cautioned you against responding to speakers who raise items that are not on the agenda. And that's what that item would be. So the Brown Act allows a very brief response, but any extended discussion of the intersection at Ramona and Howard or any of those issues should not occur tonight because that item has not been agendized. So I know the city manager is planning on responding to that, but I just wanted to remind you all that this is where we have to be very careful because that item is not on the agenda.
And that's fine. And I'll let this, whatever the city manager can state under the Brown Act, and I will suggest the resident perhaps have a meeting with one of our, either Noel or the city manager, and they can have a further discussion outside of a public meeting, if that's appropriate, city attorney.
As long as there's, no discussion among council members.
Exactly.
Okay. So other than those two items, I have nothing else this evening.
Thank you. City manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. It is not my intent to comment on the accident at Ramon and Howard. That is still an ongoing investigation. Therefore, we would not be getting into any discussion related to the accident. I am limiting my comments only to the fact that the city is looking at a potential bond that we would be bringing before the City Council. The purpose of the bond would be to do public improvement projects, and various areas throughout the city would be focused on as it relates to spending funds to make improvements. And certainly any street or intersection that was considered worthy of major attention by the city for improvement would be included in the list of activities that would be part of that bond measure. We're also looking at a number of grants that would allow us to make physical improvements to the city's infrastructure. As you know, in recent years, we've had pretty good success with grant development, and we hope that as we go forward, that success will continue down the road. That concludes my comments as it relates to the funding related to infrastructure improvements in the community. The other comments I have to make are about the COVID status update. As of today, the United States is reporting nearly 27 million confirmed COVID-19 cases and 450,000 deaths, a number that's expected to exceed 500,000 within the next 10 days. Last week, 2 weeks ago, I reported they expected that number to hit at the end of February, but based on the current rate of death in the United States, we can expect to see reaching 500,000 deaths in 10 days. In fact, during January, one person died in the United States every 28 seconds from the coronavirus. The U.S. also continues to represent more than 1/4 of the world's cases and deaths related to coronavirus. California is reporting approximately 3.35 million confirmed cases and 41,000 deaths. San Bernardino County is reporting 275,076 cases and 1,856 deaths. Montclair is reporting 5,784 confirmed cases and 63 deaths. I want to note, however, that Montclair is identified as one of 6 cities in San Bernardino County where there is a discrepancy in the number of cases that have been reported. What we have found is that people living in other communities are coming to Montclair testing sites to be tested, and those cases are being reported as Montclair cases as opposed to where the individuals actually live. So we hope that at some time in the future that those numbers will be adjusted and we'll have more accurate estimates as to number of confirmed cases and deaths for Montclair. I think that when you look at the San Bernardino County dashboard and you compare between Montclair and other cities in San Bernardino County, and you wonder why Montclair cases are so high, well, this is a reason as to why the cases in Montclair are being reported as so high. Last Monday, Governor Newsom lifted California's COVID-19 stay-at-home order. In lifting the order, the state announced that its 4-week ICU bed availability projection for Southern California is above 15%, and the region may exit the stay-at-home order at that time. State has now returned to the color-coded tier system and county-by-county guidance, meaning that different counties would follow different regulations based on rates of positive test results for COVID-19 and case numbers within their respective counties. Los Angeles and San Bernardino counties return to the most strict purple widespread risk tier band. However, I believe that there are only 3 counties in the state of California that are outside of the purple tier. So we really are no different than almost every other county in the state of California. Lifting the order does allow restaurants and gyms to reopen outdoors and hair and nail salons to reopen indoors with modifications. Last Friday, Governor Newsom signed legislation to protect Californians facing financial hardship because of the pandemic from eviction. That extension will be through June, as long as they pay at least 25% of their rent monthly or provide a lump sum payment by June 30. The current moratorium, before this legislation was adopted, was set to expire just days before the governor signed the new legislation on Friday. Tenants cannot be evicted from their homes as long as they pay 25% of their rent. The bill also provides $2.6 billion in federal funds for rent subsidies that will help to pay most past due rent by low-income tenants dating back to last April 2020. The new rent subsidy will pay landlords 80% of the total amount of the rent in arrears incurred between April of 2020 and March of 2021, as long as the landlords agree to forgive the remaining 20% and not pursue evictions. California has also modified its vaccine eligibility groups to prioritize age along with specific occupations. The change in prioritization will not change efforts to vaccinate the current groups: healthcare workers, people 65 years of age and older, and the next expansion of eligibility to teachers, farm workers, and first responders will continue as currently planned. The shift does come in relation to those who will get vaccinations after those particular groups. Under the original plan's tier structure, tier workers in manufacturing, transportation, and commercial and residential settings, along with incarcerated people and the homeless, would be prioritized. Under the new plan, the next priority would be people under 65 years of age, actually between the ages of 50 and 65. California is still struggling to get enough of the vaccine to meet the current demand. The state public health department believes it could take until June to get vaccinations to all of those people 65 and older. However, President Biden has announced plans to vaccinate up to 300 million people this year, hopefully within his first 100 days, which could greatly shorten the timeline for vaccine administration. I saw that smile on Denise Johnson when I said 100 years, but I don't think he'll live that long, unfortunately. The state has so far received 5.666 million vaccines and has administered more than 3.6 million doses, or approximately 63% of the available doses. The state is receiving 300,000 to 500,000 doses each week. The new single-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine has a 66% global efficacy rate, 72% efficacy rate for administration in the United States against moderate and severe illnesses. Unlike the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine simplifies distribution and expands access because it requires only regular refrigeration. San Bernardino County has now announced that there will be 2 large sites with vaccinations available in large numbers for people against the novel coronavirus. Those vaccination programs will begin this week. The Moderna vaccinations for about 3,500 people each week will begin at the Auto Club Speedway in Fontana starting tomorrow, February the 2nd. Appointments for the second dose will be scheduled at the time of receipt of the first vaccine, with the second dose administered approximately 30 days after receipt of that first dose. Another site, the Ontario Convention Center, is now accepting appointments for Monday through Fridays from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. The first day of vaccination at the Convention Center will begin this Thursday, February 4th. However, supplies of the vaccine at the Convention Center for this week will be limited to about 200 vaccine doses on hand. However, in following weeks, the numbers should increase significantly. Registration for the vaccine is online at sbcovid19.com/vaccine/. Again, that is sbcovid19.com/vaccine/. Montclair City staff is also working to confirm Montclair Place as another vaccination center. That concludes my COVID-19 comments for this evening.
Well, thank you very much, City Manager. And I would just encourage Felicia, if she wants to contact the city manager at STAR's office if she would like to further meet with him and discuss that particular corner there and the proposed project for that site there, and anybody else that wishes to do so. And if there is a petition of residents that want to further talk about this, feel free to submit a petition, and then we will go from there. I appreciate the fact that we brought up the coronavirus as our typical meeting discussion. And 2021 is obviously very crucial because the vaccination has taken place. And when we get past the shortage of vaccination, I am hoping, and I was told that the County of San Bernardino, as they have done with the testing sites, want to have community centers for vaccinations. So I would love for the city of Montclair, and I know our staff has been working with the county, that we can have a vaccination center here in the city of Montclair at the appropriate time. So I appreciate staff working on that. And hopefully, I'm hoping that by March, April, there's a great deal supply of the vaccine that we, again, can allow members of the community to go very local and get their shots. I want to state that because of the governor's ruling from last week, it's good to know that we are open again, our restaurants are open, and I'm hoping that the members of the public respect the fact that we are still in a crisis situation, and we all have to wear masks. We all have to wear or conduct our social distancing, clean our hands. We have a responsibility as the public to ensure that we don't contribute to any further surges. We want our small businesses, we want our restaurants to survive, and many of them right now are hurting. And I'm hoping that they're in the near future, either through federal actions, further federal stimulus funds, or perhaps in the city of Montclair, if we do get some federal stimulus funds, we can assist some of our small businesses that are struggling, especially with their rent payments, to keep the doors open. So again, I encourage the public that they need to continue on to take this seriously, get vaccinated, and let's fight this very dangerous disease. 2022, and I'll make this short because I don't want to violate the Brown Act, but this is I think an exciting year for the city of Montclair as we are tackling the coronavirus, but I also think that other issues here in Montclair of new developments, again, we continue to work with CIM on the development of the Montclair Place, further development in North Montclair. I'm hoping that in 2022, we can, that the city of Montclair, with partnerships with SPCTA and LA Metro and the Construction Authority, we can secure the funds for the Gold Line project. 2022 is also a year that we'll be taking a look at our budget, what the impacts of the budget will be, and obviously with the additional general fund monies coming from Measure Rail to allow us to stabilize the budget and also be able to enhance our services, and also, as the city manager mentioned earlier, allows us to go out and issue bonds for further improvements in our city. One of the improvements that I know that I'm anxious to get started in 2022 is the baseball and softball field improvements at Saratoga and also Vernon. And so I'm hoping that we can at least start the design process in 2022. Some challenge in 2022 or continue on, but obviously homelessness is a further challenge, not just this city, but our region. And so I'm hoping that in 2022, we can provide more resources as we've seen new resources from the state in 2020 that assist us, and then hopefully continue that. Another challenge I'm seeing, and I'm afraid in 2022 is coming back, is graffiti. I've seen a large amount of graffiti in the last 2 months. I appreciate staff staying on top of that and abating the graffiti as much as they can, but I'm afraid that this year we'll spend more time on graffiti. So and then I just stay on. One of the things I asked that city manager when I met with him is to come up with a workshop for the housing foundation areas. We haven't had one in a while, and now we have some new city, at least 3 new city council members, probably don't know too much about the housing foundation areas. And we, obviously the city owns properties in these foundation areas. We have CCNRs for property owners to maintain it. We've used CDBG funds in the past to do a number of public improvements in the foundation areas. So there'll be a workshop in the future to get us all updated. So I think I've spoken enough at this time. One final issue, going back to the coronavirus. I know I've had people ask me about parks. When are we going to open up the parks? I was wondering if we can have, I know we, in March, if the first meeting in March, if we can put an item on the agenda and discuss opening the parks, and perhaps we can also discuss when the city council will meet again in person. So city manager, can you have an item in March for opening up city parks and then also the city council meeting in person? Okay, with that, I think I've spoken too much, and I'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Rue.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will start out where we've been spending a great amount of time in our city on the coronavirus. Over the weekend, in the newspapers and on television and on radio, we heard about the protests at Dodger Stadium, where protesters blocked the ability of people to be able to go and obtain their coronavirus inoculation. These individuals said they didn't believe in vaccines and it was their freedom not to have one. They may protest in peace, but you don't block somebody's access. You have your own definition of freedom, but at the same time, you are blocking somebody's freedom to obtain a coronavirus inoculation. Many of these people were older. Many of them had pre-existing conditions and illnesses. That is not what we should do. You can disagree with it, but please don't block somebody else's access to an inoculation that they desperately need. That's just wrong. In San Bernardino County, I have a suggestion. The suggestion is that they create a standby line for the coronavirus inoculation. The standby line would be for people who maybe do not qualify, but if they stand in line and the center has extra vaccine that will expire, that those individuals might be permitted to obtain a coronavirus inoculation. It's similar to a standby line on an airline. You want to get on a flight, you don't have a ticket, you can stand by and then you pay your fee. In this case, they would probably have to have medical insurance or something of that sort. But I would hate to see these vaccines going to waste. Not when we need so many people to have the coronavirus vaccines. As you've heard already this evening, I urge everyone 65 and older, all those who qualify to receive a coronavirus vaccine, to please do so. Make your appointment, obtain your vaccine. It's going to be vital for you. Also, once you have been inoculated, you will be given a card. Please laminate that card, take a picture of it if you can. File copies away with loved ones or somebody you trust. In case you lose it, you will have a copy somewhere. I believe that's important. Because when we look at coronavirus as of today, more people have died from the coronavirus than all the US casualties, war casualties in the Second World War and Korea combined. Think about that. More people have died from coronavirus than died of war casualties, Americans dying of war casualties in the Second World War and Korea. That is a sobering statistic. It is tragic that we have 63 deaths here in Montclair. Each one of those represents somebody who will not be at the home, somebody who's not going to be at dinner, somebody who's not going to be playing with their children or grandchildren. That too is a sobering statistic. And we need to take this seriously. I realized that in this county, they didn't think face coverings were important. We do in Montclair. We voted that you will wear face coverings. You will keep 6 feet of separation. And if we don't, we're going to go back to where we were. We need to think every time we go out about those 63 residents of this community who died. Personally, I have 2 friends of mine, not in this community, but 2 friends of mine who have died from this. I think of those people every day. I know what it means to have somebody no longer there. I want to also talk about a piece of legislation that is working its way through Sacramento. It's pretty much just been introduced. This has to do with property tax assessments and forgiveness or waiver of the penalties. Essentially, what this legislation would do is allow county assessors at their discretion to forgive the penalties and fees on delinquent property tax, provided the reason for the delinquency is related to the stay-at-home order. It does not forgive the property tax. I've had some back and forth on that. You still have to pay your property tax, but it gives the assessor the opportunity, the discretion to say, you know what, we understand why you couldn't pay this property tax. As long as you pay it, the fees and penalties will be forgiven. I think that that's something that's important, especially for many property owners who are struggling themselves right now, and there's no real relief in sight for them. And a final item, and you've heard me talk about this before, it especially becomes important when we have it's dark a little earlier right now. Please load and unload your vehicle curbside. Over the weekend, on one of our interior streets, I saw somebody loading and unloading from their trunk, placing everything street side. It was a narrow street. You have to be careful when you drive anyway. But please, when you load and unload your vehicle, do it curbside. You run far less risk of something happening, and you secure yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker will be Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple of things tonight. Like others, there seems to have been an abundance of graffiti over the last month or so. And I really want to commend the graffiti abatement team for the work that they're doing to keep our streets looking clear. They've been working very hard at, when stuff has been reported to them within a day or two, they're out getting rid of it. I discovered today that some of that can be sandblasted because I saw one of our public works folks out on the road where somebody had tagged several areas on a block wall, and rather than painting over it that would make it look funny, they were sandblasting it to get it off the wall. So kudos to our public works team for the work that they do. I also want to commend the human services staff who, despite like every other department being short-staffed, they're doing all that they can to support the seniors through the senior lunch program, as well as the monthly food distribution. Those first folks are really working hard to make sure that our residents are served, and I want to commend them for their efforts, as well as the efforts of everyone else. But those are just the two that I see. And then, I want to talk about this coronavirus. We've all been inside the house. We've all been hunkered down and trying to stay safe. And now that the order has been lifted and we can go out to eat, some of us probably feel like, little puppies that have been left in the backyard. And as soon as the gate opens, that we want to take off and run and go do all kinds of things that we did when things were normal. And although I would caution us to still be vigilant, we still need to wear our masks. We still need to wash our hands frequently. We still need to distance ourselves. But having said that, go out to eat. Treat yourself once a week or twice a week. Go out to eat, stay distanced, keep your mask on when you're not actively eating or drinking. But it's nice to sit outside and breathe some fresh air. and have a meal that you didn't have to cook. So do that for yourself and do that for our restaurateurs here in town. They need you now more than ever. We need to make sure that we support them so that they can stay open as long as possible. But while you're doing all of that, they'll stay safe and you need to stay safe. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez.
Yes, thank you. I would like to thank all of our residents who have made the bold decision to come and speak today about various issues in our city. I know it's not easy, it's nerve-wracking, and you have to take time out of your day to come and speak, but we are elected as your representatives. So continue, showing up and speaking about what matters to you and what you want to see being done in the city, because we are listening.
Thank you. Councilmember Lopez.
Mr. Mayor and members, first of all, is the camera working on me?
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, all righty. I can't, from my angle, I just see the city screen. I just see the slide. I don't see any interaction. I just hear voices. Nonetheless, other than I did see Ms. Johnson's angle, and I would say that we should move the next council meeting to her house so we could enjoy the fireplace. I had a few items that I wanted to touch on, but I'm contemplating doing so. Let me ask real quickly, you, Mr. Mayor, requested an item be on the agenda in March, I believe. Also in March, based upon the council meeting we had on December 7th, I had an item as well that I'd liked at that time agendized, and the city attorney gave a brief presentation on a new change of law regarding campaign finance. I would still like that item to be brought up in March as well. So please, appropriate staff, please don't forget that item. Brief comments, I guess. Without being redundant in what I said the past 2 meetings, I felt like I had addressed some of the issues brought up that were initially brought up during the campaign. I had thought I had been very obvious in my intent to extend an open hand and work with everyone to move forward. Yes, I did lobby for an organization for quite some time, from my early 20s to, goodness, maybe 6, 7 years ago. I forget the time frame now. And like a lobbyist, your job is to represent that organization's view on legislation. You fight bills, you support bills, you win some, you lose some. But what I also need to mention is that, I represented other groups and other issues in the state, foster care issues. I remember one of my clients I had to speak out in trying to defend Mexican rodeos in the state because they were trying to limit them and pretty much ban them. So I wasn't just restricted to the issues that folks are bringing up today. People also fail to, I guess, bring up these issues regarding my time in Sacramento, is that I also took part in the efforts to end housing discrimination in the state for all categories of the public, and that included sexual orientation. And I was very instrumental in that. I had a seat at the table, and I fought for all groups to be included in the ban on housing discrimination. I also helped with language and getting through the state legislature a bullying bill, and it was for all forms of bullying, like race, sexual orientation, appearance, economic status, and one's traits, and for me, more importantly, were religious beliefs. And that bill got passed, and it's law today, and I had a hand in that. So I'm careful with my words, because I am of the belief that no matter what I try to do and try to say to put people at ease and assuage their concerns, my words will somehow be used against me or twisted in some way. I'm more than willing to meet with any resident, and I will extend that again to Mr. Nguyen. I believe 1.5 years ago, even before I was elected and I was a resident, just the resident on the other side of the dais, so to speak, I had reached out via messenger and congratulated him on speaking at his first council meeting, and offered to sit down and chat and have a discussion back then. And that was before I even knew anything about him. I was impressed with his speaking ability back then and still am today. Granted, I'm on the receiving end of that, of those speeches. But I'd be happy to sit down. I know in the era of COVID, I know having meetings at restaurants is a little bit restrictive, but to have an honest, open, sincere discussion, I'm very open to it. And I will say this again, the guy that I was perhaps in my 20s and mid 30s is not the guy that I am today. I have come a long way. I may not be where some of my critics want me to be, but I've come a long way on some issues. And I'm not as hard-nosed as I used to be. So take that as progress. Just because one disagrees with one point does not mean that they're discriminatory. The statement that was made about how will I do my job as councilman without having any quote ism attached to it. When I cast my votes on this council, this is my third meeting now, in this early start of my term. I look at how it benefits our residents and gets more bang for the buck, and how we spend their money wisely, how we provide adequate police and fire protection, how we provide programs for our families, our youth, our seniors, our veterans, how we provide education programs that help all of our veterans. I'm sorry, all of our residents. I'm sorry, that's what I meant to say. And I don't look at what demographic those residents come from. And neither should any of my colleagues. No one who sits on this council for years to come should do that. And it's irrelevant to me. If it benefits a resident, that they're deserving of having the benefit of the program, benefit of public safety, the benefit of a service, the benefit of a park. And that you got to trust me on it. I don't have this deep-seated agenda here, and I know politically how to differentiate between the two. Look, if any of those folks want to reach out to me, they can. You can reach me through my city email at blopez@cityofmontclair.org. You can call City Hall. I'd be happy to call you, and we can try to put these issues to bed. But I don't know what more I could do other than just say get to know me. I mean, for those that genuinely know me, I'm not the person that I was, and that's all I can say. With that, I conclude my remarks, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to my colleagues and staff for indulging me in the public.
Thank you. Okay, the next item now is we will be going into closed session. And so give us about 2 minutes, I think, 2 minutes. Is that good for everybody?
Yes.
And then we'll be in closed session. All right, we will return in 2 minutes. Okay, so City Council is back in open session. Staff provided information to the City Council, and there's no further action, no further action or further discussion to disclose in public session. I can say. Did I say it correctly, City Attorney?
Yes, just direction given to staff.
Direction given to staff. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.